Democrats will be back this week for a second round of presidential debates as they fight for the chance to take on President Trump and his economy in 2020. Joining us right now for a preview is Terry McAuliffe. He is former governor of Virginia. He's the author of a new book, Beyond Charlottesville, Taking a Stand Against White Nationalism. Former U.S. Senator Judd Gregg is also with us, who also served as governor of New Hampshire. We welcome both of them to the program this morning. You're with us here in person, so I'm going to go to you first. What do you really expect we're going to see? I think there's a big question about Biden being the front runner and who's really behind him right now.
Yeah, I think Biden clearly is the front runner. In fact, the polls out this weekend have him higher than he was before the first debate. But let me be clear, he's got to have a good debate. It wasn't his best performance in the first one. And listen, every poll shows he is most likely to beat and really beat Donald Trump badly in most of the states. Poll out in Ohio this weekend, he beats him by 8 points. But he has to show on the debate stage that he can take on Donald Trump. And in the first debate, it didn't look that way, and they want to see him come out with strength when Trump...
Is there any lesson, though, in what happened during the last election, which was that Hillary Clinton effectively ran as a candidate that was not Donald Trump, right? That was sort of it was sort of I'm not him. That was sort of what we were left with at the end. And that's sort of the Biden strategy at this point.
Well, he just laid out his health care proposals. I mean, and listen, I wasn't happy with the first debate. I don't want to hear about busing 40 years ago.
Right.
I don't want to relitigate the past. We have issues today. We got a gigantic debt we have to deal with. I didn't hear K-12 mentioned. I didn't hear workforce development. I didn't hear cybersecurity. Really? But I want this debate to be about the future. People want to know, what are you going to do for me going forward? And you got to deal with Trump, who's trying to set the stage with racism. Right. I mean, listen, I talk about my book. He came out as a full-fledged white nationalist racist in Charlottesville. How do you not condemn neo-Nazis? I talked to him that day. I said, Mr. President, you have to come out. They're in my state. Horrible people. Telling members of the Jewish faith they want to burn them alive like they did in Auschwitz. Attacking members of the African-American community. Is it that hard to come out and condemn him? He would not do it that day after I begged him that he needed to do the right thing. So you see what he's trying to do, double down on his insanity. I don't think it works.
Senator Gregg, you want to respond to that? And I'm curious, given the comments over the weekend about Baltimore that have obviously come into the conversation, whether you think that puts President Trump in jeopardy at all.
Well, I think what's the issue is going to be is how far left the Democratic Party is going to go here and totally disconnect with middle America. I mean, if you add up the proposals that they're putting forward, they're well over 160 trillion with a T, of new spending on all this socialist drivel they're putting out. You got Medicare for all is 30 to 40 trillion. You got Green New Deal is 96 trillion. You got paying for all public education in public university systems. You got paying people's rent when they earn less than $30,000. You got giving people down payments on their home in the inner city areas. I mean, it's just beyond comprehension, the amount of money they're talking about. I noticed Governor McAuliffe mentioned nobody's talking about the deficit. Well, in the Democratic Party, they're not talking about the deficit. They're talking about exploding the amount of debt that this country already has, which is far more than our kids can bear already. I mean, we already got $22 trillion of debt. You add just 10% of what they're proposing on top of that, and you're basically bankrupting this country.
Senator, but how are you just getting religion on this now?
Me? I've always had religion on this. I don't think you can accuse me of not having a religion on the issue of debt. I head up Fix the Debt with Ed Rendell, and I've been fighting this battle for a long time.
But then you're also fighting for the tax cuts at the same time, correct?
Yeah, I don't think we're in a revenue problem. In fact, if you look at our revenues, they're above the historic norm. We're in a spending problem, and it's driven primarily by entitlement costs. But if you throw on top of that spending problem a massive expansion in the size of the government under these socialist initiatives which are being proposed, basically you're going to make the government the only player in town, and there's no way you can pay for it. You're going to have to inflate the currency or drive the debt up to a point where it's totally unstable, and you're going to create a crisis.
Governor, what do you say?
First of all, this is why a governor should be president. We have to balance budgets every single day. We have to create jobs. No offense to the Senate and members of the Congress. They get to talk all day. Right. I didn't, as governor, have a filibuster. I had to act every single day. And that's why I've always said governors ought to be presidents, because this is what we do every single day. But listen, the deficit spending we have today in this country is plain unsustainable.
Okay, but then you have to look at look at the party. Look at the Democratic Party right now. They are. I mean, he's right in that they do want to spend. That's not to say the Republicans haven't wanted to spend either. But right now, given some of these plans,
well, most of the Democrats run and say, first of all, we'll get rid of that horrible tax cut that we had 2 years ago. I mean, they're very clear how they would come up with some new spending. I mean, that tax cut did nothing but help the rich and allow for stock buybacks. I'm all for tax cuts if it will stimulate the economy. We've got an infrastructure problem in this country today that we have to deal with. Nobody talks about that. But listen, the Democrats are going to lay out a plan. I think it's very hard for Donald Trump to win re-election. I mean, there were 77,000
there's
votes.
an economic argument that you can make against Donald Trump right now in the midst of what continues to be or looks like a very good economy. I'm just suggesting, look, I'm not going to tell you there isn't inequality. I'm not going to tell you a lot of things. There's lots of issues. But on a relative basis,
we've had a 10-year recovery. Let's be clear. This is not Donald Trump. This started, I remind you, when Barack Obama took over the economy, we were on a fiscal cliff.
Look,
sure, I'm fine with that.
I was the first to give Obama credit when I thought the economy was getting better. Others were not. But you know what? While President Trump is the president, you ultimately give credit to the person who's in the seat.
No question. And we had a sugar rush, first of all, because of the tax cut. I mean, there were some very good things done about rolling back regulations and things that we needed to do to get our economy going. I don't like the president on his tariffs. We got to be tough with China. But I can tell you this, soybean farmers in Virginia today are getting crushed. In the Midwest, farmers are losing their farms. The cost of our goods is going up. This is a ridiculous policy. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing with these tariffs. So, listen, we've got a lot of issues. But I go back to, we still have income inequality in this nation today.
I think
we've got to deal with that issue.
Your arguments are going to be stronger getting away from the economy. That's the thing I don't understand. Running on the economy, to me, seems like a very hard way to go. If you want to run on Baltimore and Charlottesville and all of that, I'm not going to dissuade you. But I'm going to suggest that on the economy itself, I think that's a very hard argument to make right now.
We got a great argument on the economy. We've had a 10-year run. But what do we do to prepare us for the next 20 or 30 years? We've got to deal with the deficit in this country today. We cannot continue to spend. We just cannot do that. It's not going to affect me, but I'll tell you this, it affects my 5 children and their children. Not going to affect most of the people here. But to put together, listen, we have open jobs in this country. I go back to education. Building an education system that trains and teaches folks to match the skills that exist today. That's what I did as governor of Virginia. I went from unemployment from 5.4 to 3.6. #1 state cybersecurity, data. Building an economy for the future, that's where but racism and dividing people is not the answer.
Hey, Judd, I recall that Trump did say some negative things about at Charlottesville. I also remember that he was specifically talking about the people that didn't want to tear down the Robert E. Lee statue. Do you see it that way at Charlottesville, Judd? You didn't respond to that at all. I mean, I just think it's, I think it doesn't.
I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead. I'm not the guest. You're the guest.
Thank you. I think as a nation, we've really gotten off track on this whole discussion in the sense that both sides are shouting at each other in terms that are really diminishing the debate. There are issues. There's no question there are issues in this country that are social issues and that they need to be addressed. But you're not going to address them by shouting at each other and saying, this fellow's a racist and this person's a racist, and both sides accusing each other of being
Would you condemn the
racist.
comments of the president?
Which ones, Andrew?
We can do this.
Okay, well, do
comments.
specifically.
You can do the comments about Baltimore over the weekend. Even if you don't think the president is a racist, can you not see or at least appreciate the issue that large parts of this country do or are worried that those comments are inciting a larger conflict?
Well, I think they're being incited by both sides, to be very honest with you. When I occasionally read the New York Times, which I try to avoid because I find it so outrageous, I find it insightful against people who are conservative. So, why don't we get back to some dialogue that creates constructive action in this country? I mean, that's what I'd like to see, bipartisan dialogue on constructive action.
Arthur Brooks gave me, I took home, you got a copy too, Sorkin, Love thy enemies. Have you seen that? And I said, I'm not even going to read this because I can't. It's impossible for me. And it just, and then I started reading it, and I'm trying, Andrew. I'm trying. I am. There's like 5 things that listening and disagreeing with policies, not with who people necessarily are, and they're well-intentioned on both sides. I'm trying, Terry. I am.